This is Gemara Baba Basra, Daf Tes Zayin, and we pick it up at the top line of Tes Zayin Amid Aleph, and we're in the middle of discussing Eoiv and the incredible story of the Satan's desire to tempt and test Eoiv. Says the Gemara on the top line, Oid Zeh Medaber V'zeh Ba Vayomer Ish Elokim. This one was still talking, and this one came and said, Ish Elokim, there's a fire of God that's come, and what did this fire do? It's burnt up the sheep, the avadim, etc., etc., and I escaped to tell you, this is the messenger talking to Eov. This one is speaking in another one, and it came and said, as a Kasdim, Kasdim Samai. Shleisha Roshim v'yivshitu ala gemalim v'yichlu v'gomer. The Kasdim took 3 divisions against the camels, and they took them, and he killed all the servants, and I'm the only one that escaped. A third messenger of Zebah v'yomer banecha b'neisecha eichlim v'shaisin yayin b'beis achiyam. Your sons and daughters are eating and drinking wine in the house of their brother Abachar, the firstborn, v'hinei, and behold, ruach gedayla ba me'iver Hamidbar, a great wind came from against the desert, and it struck the 4 corners of the house, and the house collapsed on the young men, and they died, and only I escaped to tell you. Eov, after hearing all these terrible pieces of news, gets up, he rips tears kriya on his shirt, and he plucks the hair out of his head, he throws himself on the ground, he bows down, and he says, Arum yatsasi mi betenimi. I came out of the beten of the womb of my mother, Arum naked, v'arum ashiv shama, and I will return there as well. Arum Hashem nasan v'Hashem lakach. The words that are said at the Levaya, Hashem has given, Hashem has taken. Yehi Shem Hashem mevayrach b'chol. Yehi Shem Hashem mevayrach. May the name of Hashem be blessed. Eov, after hearing that he's come out, lost everything, what does he do? After tears kriya, he proclaims the incredible Gevura of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem nasan v'Hashem lakach, and he blesses Hashem. B'chol zayis, despite all of these terrible calamities, lo chata'i of lo nasan tefillah le'elokim. The tifla, he never sinned, and he didn't give tifla, negativity, to Hashem. Vahi continues the psukim, and it was on the day, and the Bnei Elikim, the Malachim, came to stand for Hashem, and the Satan comes as well. Hashem says to the Satan, where do you come from? Satan is Hashem. Repeating the story that we started with, that the Satan says, Hashem, I have not found anyone as loyal as Avram Avinu, that you said to Avram, Kumis Aleich, get up and go. We're up to the first very wide line, Ba'aretz, La'arkai, L'rachva, the length and the width, Kilachat, and for it I will give you. And yet, Avram Avinu didn't have somewhere to bury Sarah. And yet, even though he was supposed to get the entire world, he was not Maharer after the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Continues back into the story of Eov. Hashem says to the Satan, Hasamta libcha l'avdi Eov, kein kamayah ba'aretz. Did you pay attention to Eov? The Satan saying has been known as great as Avram Avinu. Says Hashem to the Satan, what about Eov? Continues the Gemara. What happens next? Excuse me. What about Eov? And guess what? And Eov is still holding strong. There's no one like him. And you turned, and yet destroyed him for no reason. Amar Rav Yechlan says, Rav Yechlan, we wouldn't be able to say this, like a person. It describes Hashem like a person that others could ki'ilu kaviyachol urge and persuade Hashem to do. Urge and persuade Hashem to do that which is necessary. We learned in the Mishnah, the Satan descends to the world and he lures people to sin, and he goes up. umargiz. And what does he do? He incites Hashem's wrath. Noitel rishos, v'noitel neshama. He gets rishos from Hashem and he can take a neshama. Continues the Gemara back with the story of Eov. Again, the interjections back and forth, of course, make this a little bit complicated. But says the Gemara, Vayan ha-Satan as Hashem vayomer. And the Satan turns back to Hashem and he says, V'oid, excuse me, or, not oid, sorry. Or ba'ad or v'chosher le'ish yitin. Ba'ad denavshay, limb for limb. All that has a man has given up for his life. Ulam shlach na yodcha. But stretch out your hand and do what? Viga el besarai. Strike his flesh himself. El atzmai vel besarai. Imloy el panecha yivarchecha. And says the Satan, and then let's see. Yes, we took his children. Yes, we took his possessions. But let's hit Eov himself and see how he responds afterwards. Hashem responds, Shamor. You can do what you please, but you cannot kill him. You have to spare his life. The Satan goes down, Hashem. And he hits Eov, etc. And he starts to have inflammation around his feet, from his feet all the way to the top of his body. The sar of the Satan to inflict pain on Eov without killing him, meaning to keep him alive, was more difficult than even the pain of Eov himself. Rabbi, Shavar Chavis, break the barrel, but Vishamar es Yenai, and guard the wine, an almost impossible task. Continues the Gemara, Amar Eish Lakish. Brought 10 lines into the very wide lines. First one is Yenai. Who Satan, who Yetaru, Malacham Avos, it's all the same person. Who Satan, the Siv. V'yisaya Satan, Mispinei Hashem, who Yetaru, Ksiv Asam. Rak Kol Yom, Ksiv Acha, Rak Yilav, Al Tishach Yadcha. And who Malacham Avos, and he's the same person. He as well is the Malacham Avos, the Ksiv. Achas Nafshay Shamor. Alma, what do we see? We see from all these psukim, B'didei Kaimi. We see that the Satan could take the neshama if he wanted to, meaning he's the Malach HaMaves. Says the Gemara, back into the story of Satan, Amar and Eov, Satan u'Penima, l'shem shamayim. The Satan, as well as Penina, acted l'shem shamayim. This kamnu Satan came to Chazal Kadosh Baruch Hu Nenati Edaite Basra Eov. So Satan saw that Hashem was partial towards Eov. He was leaning his das towards him. Amar chas v'shalom min shilei. God forbid, I'll forget the what? The Rachmanusa of Avram. The Rachmanusa of Avram. So he wanted to pull Eov down just to bring out how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us. Similarly, Penina dechsev uchsita sarasa kam kas ba'avur har ima. That Penina as well, the reason why she provoked Chana was purely so that Chana would daven better. Darsha Rav Acha bar Yaakov bePapanunya. Also, that in the town of Papanunya, Asa Satan, Nashke Lekare, the Satan came and kissed his foot in appreciation. That is the good intentions of the Satan. Back into Eov, how did Eov respond? Eov. With all of this, Eov did not sin bisfasav with his mouth. Amar bisfasav leichata, b'libay chata. Mike Amar, what is he in his heart? That Eov, in his heart, what did Eov say? The land is delivered into the hands of the wicked. He covers the face of his judges. If not, then who is it? The one that's making the pain. Who's the one that's inflicting this horrible pain on me? Amar Rava Bikesh Eov lahapich kaira al piyah. Eov wanted to turn the plate upside down. What does that mean? He, at some level, believed that the world was no longer being controlled by Kadosh Baruch Hu. He believed the world was being controlled by the Concise of Ra. Amar le Abaye, continues Abaye, and he says, Lo davar Eov, lo diber Eov al keneged Satan. Eov was only talking to the Satan. He was just saying how horrible it is that the Satan brings such suffering on the world. Says the Gemara, this machlekes Rav and Abaye, whether Eov was indeed questioning HaKadosh Baruch Hu or not, Kitanoi is a machlekes Tanoim. Eretz Nasa bi'ad Rosh of Lezer Omer Bikesh Eov lavach kara al pi Amar le Rav Yeshua lo davar Eov el kalape Satan. The same machlekes that we just had. Continues the Gemara quoting Eov al daitcha ki loi Were not your intention, I would not be wicked. Nothing can be saved from you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Amarava, Bikesh Eov lifter, it's Kulam and Adin. Eov wanted to make everyone patur from judgment. Amar Lefanav. What did Eov do? Eov said in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rebbeinu Shalom. Barasi Shar Barsais of Sedukais. You created a shar with split hooves. Barasi Chamar Barsais of Klutais. You created a Chamar with closed hooves. Barasi Gan Eden, you created Gan Eden, meaning you could tell, you Hashem decided which animal is kosher or not, and you created Gan Eden, Brasi Gahanim, Brasi Sadiqim, Brasi Risham, Mi Ma'akev Al Yadcha, who could stop you? Saying is Eov that there are aviras that you Hashem are causing. Therefore, there should be no punishment. And what did Eov's friends answer him and said, Avata Tafar Yireh, V'sigra Sichel of Nekel. Certainly, you're going to have fear, and you're not going to have as many tefillos in front of Hashem. Meaning, what's the point of davening if everything is preordained? Must be what you're saying is wrong. There is the Torah, and therefore every person, it's up to him to determine whether he'll be a tzaddik or a rasha. Darash Rava Darshins. What is the meaning of the pasuk? Barachta Oiveid. What is the meaning of the pasuk that the blessing of the wicked was towards me, says Eov, and I brought simcha to the widow's heart. Birkas Oived, Alai Tavai, the blessing of the horrible one was directed towards me. That's what that Eov would steal fields from Yisayim, he would improve it and return it to them. And therefore, the Yisayimim would be happy and bless Eov. But the heart of the Almana he brought joy to Almana, whatever there was in Almana Dulavi Nasvi law that wasn't married. Havi Azel Shade Shame Uluyeh. Eov would go and Eov would say he had something to do with her, so that people would want to marry this woman. Ravi Asi Nasvi law, and people would go and marry her. Says the Gemara. Back into Eov for about 20 lines to the end of the Amud. The first line is Shemei. Says the Gemara, Lushakal Kasi Vavasi b'maznayim Yisu Yachad. Would that my be that Eov saying is that which is everything going to be weighed and the experience put on a scale, let it all be born together? Amarav, what exactly does this mean? Afra lepume to Eov. If you put dirt on the mouth of Eov, Chavrusa Klab Ishmaya, he's talking as if he's a friend with Hashem. Eov saying, Ki'ilu, let us, me and you, God, decide what is right. Of course, an absolute horrible thing to say. Luyesh Beinenu, continues Eov, is there anyone amongst us, Mechiach Yoshes Yadai Al Shaninu, who could prove? Amar Rav again, Avruma di Eov, Kulam Yishavich Mechichas Rabbi. Eov the Eved, at some level, giving rebuke to his master. Continues the Gemara, Brisi Karisi Leinai. Mat Bainain al Besula. I made a bris with my eyes. What would I think about a Besula? Amar Rava, Avra Lapume de Eov, Iu Bachrinusa de Avram. Iu Bachrinusa. He says he didn't gaze at another woman besides his wife. Avram, Afilu B'didei Lo Istakil. Avram Avinu didn't even look at his own wife. Which seems to indicate or proves that Avram originally didn't know how beautiful Sarah was. He didn't even look at his own wife. Kala anan v'ilach kein yarich lo ya'aleh. As the cloud dissipates, so is the one in the grave. He will not come up. Amar Rava mikan shekafar Eov Rachmana litzlan b'tchias hamesim. Eov denies tchias hamesim. Asher b'shari yeshufeni v'harbe patzani chinam. He has shattered with me a whirlwind, multiplied my wounds. Amar Rava, Eov b'sara charef. Eov angered Hashem with Sarah, and he was answered with Sarah. As he says, he shouted me with Sarah, which means Eov says, Shema Ruach Sarah Lefanecha. Maybe there's a whirlwind that has passed in front of you. Maybe the whirlwind has confused Eov with Oyev, my enemy. Basra Shivu, and Hashem answered him, Vayan Hashem es Eov min Asara vayomer, Ezer no ki kever chalsecha, Ezer no kever chalsecha v'ashalcha v'hoidieni. That you should get ready, Prepare yourself like a warrior, and I will question you, and you will answer. Says the Gemara, Amar Allah, Hashem says to Eov, Harbe nimin barasi ba'idam. I've created many hairs, v'chol nima v'nima, and each and every hair, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu, brasi laguma v'fnei atzma, has its own hole. Shelo yishtayim yoinkais miguma achas, two hairs will never grow out of one hole. Shalom yishtayim yoinkais miguma achas, if two hairs will grow out of one hole. Machshichais mareinav shaladam. What would happen? A person would lose his eyesight. Says the Kadosh Baruch Hu, I was able to make sure that every single hair has its own hole, but you're claiming Ben Eov La'yev, Ben Eov L'Eov, this Chalev Li. Really? Says Hashem, obviously that's not true. Another example, Mi Pelik L'Shetev Tala, 10 lines to the end of the Amid, the first line is Li, says the Pasuk, open the channel for the gushing water, says Hashem, and I created many drops of water in the clouds. And each drop has its own channel. Two drops of rain cannot come out of the same channel. Why? It would destroy the world from the rain. Says Hashem. And you think I made a mistake between Eov? My mashma. Says the Gemara, where do we see the Tala list of the Fosu? How do you know the word Tala means a channel, a place where the rain comes through? Amar Rabba Shila, Tersev, the Pasuk says, Yasa Tala Kebesa Sayim Zera V'derech L'chaziz Koilois Harbe L'chaziz. That he made, Vyas Tala Kebesa Sayim Zera. Elio made a channel that it was equivalent to an area of 2 saw of seeds. That's what we see that the word Tala means a channel. Continues the Gemara, a third example of the absolute precision of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Derech L'chaziz Koilos, a path for the clouds and a blast for thunder. Barasi Ba'avim, says Hashem, I created in the crowd, V'chol kol v'kol barasi lai. Harbe kol barasi Ba'avim. I created many koilos in the clouds. V'chol kol v'kol, and each and every sound, barasi lai b'shvil b'vnei atzmai, has its own path. Kadesh lo yeh b'vnei atzmai, kadesh lo yeh shtei koilos yotzes b'shvil echad. So two voices don't go to the same path. Why? Shamali shtei koilos yotzes b'shvil echad, mecharvin es kol eilam, will destroy the whole world. Says Hashem to Yev, in kol v'kol neschalef li, and ben Yev li'iliv neschalef li. Hashem telling Eov, obviously, I have not made a mistake. And continues the Gemara, the fourth example on the last line of Tezayin and Aleph, Hayadata, Eisleidas Yales Salah, Choylel Ayolois Tishmar. Yalezu, what is this Yale? What is this Gazelle? Achzari is Albanel. This goat is cruel to its offsprings, Vishasha Karas. When this goat squats at the time of birth, and we turn over to Tezayin Amabis, Loledis, to give birth, goes to the mountain, so that the offspring will fall. That's what the goat wants. The goat wants that it's going to give birth and it's going to rid itself of its offspring. Vani said the Kadosh Baruch Hu, what does Hashem do to save the offsprings? I prepare an eagle that catches the newborn goat and brings it before its mother. If there was one moment earlier, or one moment later, the newborn animal would die immediately. A fifth example of the absolute control that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, 6 lines down to Zayin Mabeis. This ayala, this gazelle, that the rechem, the womb is too small, but this one wants to give birth, and he mazon la darakoin. I prepare a snake, that it bites the animal in the rechem, it bites the animal, and then it becomes loose, rafui, and it gives birth. The animal will die. Ben regular nischalef li, ben Eov nischalef li. So 5 different examples that Kadosh Baruch Hu saying that obviously he did not make a mistake with Eov. Says the Gemara, Eov loy bedas yidaber udevarav loy behaskel. Eov did not speak with thoughts; his words were without contemplation. Amarava, what do we see from over here? Mikan shein adam nitvas b'shas sayroi. Here we see a person not held accountable for that which he says at a time of pain. Continues the Gemara. Eov had three friends, and the three friends heard as kol hara zayis, all this bad stuff. 10 lines from the white lines. Haba love that came upon him. And he came from his place. Who are these people? Alefaz atemani obaldada sheichi and Soifar Hanamasi. Vayivadu Yachtav, and they all met together, Lavai Lanud Loylanachamai, to go to Eov and to comfort him. My Vayivadu Liachtav, what does it mean that they met together? Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, Malami Shenichsu Kulam Bishar Echa, they all entered through one gate. Vitana, we learned in a Mishnah, Ben Kolacha Vecha Shal Shmeos Parsi, between each of them was 300 parsais, and yet Hashem made them. They all gained to the gate at the exact moment. How do they know? How do they know? It seems like they heard about Eov at the same moment. So how did this all happen? Some say that Eov and his friends each had a crown. And on the crown, the name of the other friend was engraved. And then when one of them had an issue, the color would change. And that's how they knew that Eov was going through something difficult. And some say, it wasn't a crown, rather it was a tree. And when it withered, they knew that there was something wrong. How wonderful. You want friends like Eov or death itself. So the friends found out, and all together they came to give Nechama, to comfort Eov. Says the Gemara, Vayihi. And it was, we're at the first white line of Tezayin Mebeis, Viki Echel Adam L'Raiv Al Panei Ha'adama. And it was when people became L'Raiv, many to propagate, to give birth on the land. Vayibanais Yuladu Lahem, and daughters were born. Amar Rav Yechon Amar Ravia Ba La'ilam. With the birth of daughters, Ravia came to the world, meaning that there could be more children. Rish Lakish Amar Meriva Ba La'ilam. No, with daughters, conflict came to the world. Conflict came to the world, and they quote in the bottom over here from the Marsha that this is a wife that could antagonize someone. That's what it means, conflict. Rav Yebal, according to you, that means that Ravia Bal propagation, that girls are able to give birth. So why was the number of Eov's daughters not doubled? Now what happened after Eov had this whole terrible episode? He had double the amount of children. He had 7 that died. Then he had 14. But the girls, he had the same number. So Amar Loi, Rav Yechon responded, it's true they were not doubled in number, but they were doubled in beauty. As the Pasuk says in the 4th white line, and it was that he had 14 sons and 3 daughters. Yemima. One of the name was Yemima. The second was Kitzia. Karen Hafoch. And the third name was Karen Hafoch. What are these 3 names? Yemima, that she was like like the day she was shining. Kitzia, that she was fragrant, like a certain type of besamim. Karen Hafach Amri Dvei Rebbe Shila Shedaima Lekarna, that she was like a Shedaima Lekarna de Karesh, like the horn of a Karesh. Machaychola Marava Karna de Karesh Lekusahi. In Marava, they laughed about this because Karna de Karesh is not a good thing. Elam Rav Chesta Kekurkuma de Rishka b'mine, like garden saffron, which is the best of its kind. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Kisikru ba poch. Continues the Gemara of Shimon Rebbe Yisraeli Dalei Barat. Shimon Rebbe had a daughter. Havika Chalish Daite. He was upset. Why was Shimon Rebbe upset? Because why? It is difficult. Why is he upset? He should have been happy. Okay, obviously he wanted a ben and not a bas, but how such a great person could be upset is obviously difficult. Amr le Avua, we're 8 lines into the very well lines. First word line is lay. His father, Rebbe, said to him, Ravia balaylam, what do you mean? A girl brings Ravia, could propagate. Amr le bar kapar, then chum shall have any chamcha avucha. This is empty consolation. Detani, yavshi laylam balay zcharim ulayne kevas. The world cannot exist without boys and girls. Allah Asher Lemisha Banim Zacharim, praises he who has boys. The world cannot exist without perfume merchants, v'loy borsi, nor with tanners. Asher misham nasei bosmi, praiseworthy is he that has a good profession. Oile misham nasei borsi. So says the Gemara, Kitanai, and this is indeed a machlekes Tanaim that said that Hashem Berach is Avram Bakol. What does it mean that Avram was blessed with everything? Bakol, Ramei Amir Shleis Labas. He didn't have a daughter. Of Yehuda Amir Shleis Labas. Cheir Amir Bas Shleis Avram Bakol Shema. Rozmadai Amir. It's like Ninis Isa Belibai. Shal Avram Avinu Shkol Malchei Mizrach Omayir Mas Kimen Lepischai. That Avram Avinu was so well versed in astrology that everyone, Kol, would come from the east and the west to his door in order to have his advice. Rashbi Omer Even Tuva Isa Tliya B'Tzavaray Avram Avinu had a stone hanging from his neck. Shel Avram Avinu Shkol Chayla Araya Samiyan Israp. B'Shashin Iftar Avram Avinu Min Ha'ilam Tla Kadosh Baruch Hu Kigalgal Achama. Hashem hung the stone like a circle around the sun. Amar Abayi says, Abayi Hainu Damrin. This is what people say. Idli Yaima Idli Kitsira. When the sun is lifted, sickness is lifted. Sunshine at some level helps the sickness due to this chain, the necklace of Avram Avinu that is hung around the sun. Davar Acher Shlomar Esav Biyamav. Another reason why he was Bakol, because Esav didn't rebel in his days. Davar Acher Shasi Yishmael Tshuva Biyamav. Yishmael did Tshuva. Shlomar Esav Biyamav Min Alan. The day that Avram Avinu was nifter, that's the days of these aviros. Also, Yaakov Avinu, Tav Shel Adash Lenachan Yitzchak Avu, Ma'ishana Shel Adashim. I'm Rabbi Mishmein to Rabbi Mari Ma Adasha Zu Ein Lapeh. So too, Af Aval Ein Lapeh doesn't have a mouth. Avaracham Adash Zu Megugeles is round. Avachil's Megugeles. The Edi Af Avilois is Migul Geles, that what? Things go up, things come down. Mechzeres al ba'i oil, and of course, this is where we get the minog, that the first Suda of Avelim, Sudas Avara, we feed them round things. Many people just do bagels nowadays or eggs. My beinayu, what's the difference? These two pshatim gvenel and achume bibia. Like we just said with eggs, according to the first pshat, eggs also have no mouth. But according to the second pshat, eggs are not fully round, so it would not be the appropriate food. Amar Rav Yechel Chamish Averos Avara Isa Rasha Baisayim. Esav did 5 Averos on the day that Avram Avinu died. Paul Naim Rasa, number 1, Harig's and Nefesh, he killed. Number 2, Kafar Bakery, denied Hashem. 3, Kafar B'tchias and number 4, Vishat Es Abachayr, and he made, belittled the Bechar. Paul Naim Rasa, Ksiv Achav Yav Esav and Asadik, Ksiv Asam, Kiba Asadam Matzah, Harig's and Nefesh, number 2, Ksiv Achav, if he was Harig Ksiv Asam, I know Likia, Yefanav, Shil Argim, the Kafar Bakery, denied Hashem. Ksivach, 8 lines from the bottom. Lamazeh. Li, why do I need this exhaustive? Say, Kili van Veyu. Cover to Ches, I may since Levine, I know Chilich Lamos. Vishad Zabachayr, the Chsev, Yves, Isif Zabachayr, Vishasa Yishmael Tshuva. So, number 2, how do we know that Tshuva, Yishmael did Tshuva beyond of the days of Avram Avinu? It's another Pshat. And what does it mean? Avram Avinu was Baruch Ba'akol, Menol, and Kiyad Ravino, Rav Chama Barbuzi, Avikayasvi, Kamei, Rava. They were falling asleep. Kamenamni Rav Amli Ravina Rav Chama Barbuzi Vadi Damrita is it true? Kamisa Shishma Gevia Azu Himi Misas and Shal Sadikim. Is it true that any Misa Shishma Gevia that says the word Gevia is Misa Sadikim really in Vadar Amarbal Vaha Dar Amabel Amar Le Anan Gevia Ve'asifa Kamrin, not just Gevia Vayishmal Dachsev Be Gevia Vasifa Adhachi Tarbe Rava Rava woke up Amrlu Dardiki, you children. Hachi Amar Rav Yechanan Yishmael asa tshuva. So it makes sense that he died a righteous death. B'chay aviv shnemar yikru asa Yitzchak Yishmael benav. V'delma derech achmasa and kachashev lehu. Says the Gemara, but maybe the pasuk is listing Yitzchak and Yishmael in the order of their chachma, but not that they participated in burying Avram Avinu. Elamiyata v'yikru as Esav v'Yaakov banav. My time lo chashev lu derech achmas. And if it's true that when you're talking about the burial of first list in order of chachma, first should have said Yaakov banav. But then Esav Ella Midaktamei Adibur Adureim Umedabre Shmamina Tshuva Avad Biyama. From here we see that Yishmael indeed did Tshuva in the lifetime of Avinu. That was one of the reasons why Avram Avinu was Baruch Ba'akol. Pick it up from the last line, B'siyata Dishmaya.